motion, those two policies did come in, I included them, but y'all may wanna wait and look at the fire, and he separated them into two separate policies, fire and hydrant separate. But it's included in your package too.
I got in trouble, so I think it'll get it.
Alright, let's call the meeting to order. Minutes of your November meeting were a part of your packet distribution. Are there any changes or corrections that need to be made to that set of minutes? Now I'd entertain a motion to accept and approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Is approved. The financials are next in the packet. Tommy or Mary Dale, any comments in particular about financials? Your summary page should be the first one. Okay, great. We're just getting into the financials. Any questions, comments about financial reports this month? If not, you have a question?
Yeah, it's nothing major. On the water sales, so it'll be 43,191. Is a lot of that overage from what was budgeted, is that due to the rate change for Core Civic, or we have actually water sales outside of Core Civic going up?
They have gone up a good 10% though.
So that's not just Core Civic, but also the general public water usages, sales have gone up.
Like any growth you had last year shows on this year too, so all those extra taps from last year, they kinda show out this year too in your budget.
That they weren't reflected in the budgeted amount? You didn't affect any growth in the budgeted amount? Your budgeted amount's showing 297, 412 actual, is what.
There's some in there, but usually no more than a percent is what I would put in.
Is it safe to say probably a good part of that was the rate change for Core
Yeah, a
Civic?
good part of it is, yes.
But we just don't know any kind of percentages as far as Core Civic 60%.
we could get
I
their,
can get
we
that
could get it to you,
because it's broken down, but not on this.
not on
report.
these reports.
Other questions, comments?
Well, my question on that, I don't know what goes along with his thinking, is this going to continue at that amount? Is a year from now, that's gonna be double that, or was that, you see what I'm saying? Or is that what it's gonna be? It's gonna be $150,000 for the year, or is it gonna be $300,000 for the year, I guess
How
is.
about the variance?
That's your variance as of to date of the 6 months. You got 6 more months to go, so it's gonna keep growing.
Okay, so it's gonna be.
It'd be roughly double.
And the core
If it
civic
continues right
rate
now.
was not factored into
It
the
was not
current
current
budget.
budget,
Okay.
cause we didn't know how that was
That was
gonna
my
fall out.
first question.
It was not factored in.
Then that would account for
So
the
it
part.
will continue to accumulate and
Yeah.
spread over these reports throughout this budget year. And then next year, we can calculate and factor it in.
Factored in.
I suspect probably the core civics more than half of it, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why you have more than expected because of that change. We didn't put it in there and estimate on it because we didn't know, we kinda did it right at the change of the budget year, so we didn't know
Their
what.
contract expired, I think, in
June
June,
30th.
and we set our budget in July, so not knowing whether it would be a disputed rate or not, we did not calculate it in. We made the budget without it, if that makes sense to you.
It does.
At that time, it wasn't a reasonably foreseeable revenue because you didn't know, like you said, you didn't know if they were gonna challenge it, then you budgeted in there and all of a sudden it goes
Right.
away.
So next year, it will be budgeted in and a part of your numbers. But for this year, it's just gonna show that continued variance,
Which is substantial.
yes. Other questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept and approve financials.
Motion to approve.
Jewel makes a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mayor seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say no. Water loss report should be the next one in your packet. We're looking at 35.8% unaccounted for in the month of November. And again, this has been a target that has moved up and down slightly throughout the months.
The mayor asked me a question here a while back, just weeks or whatever, about what changes this, it's the unknowns it's a real big change, and what you don't know is what makes the difference in percentages. Just like that leak we was looking for, we looked for it since the 6th, found it Friday, in that from the 6th to the 13th, that we lost 1 million gallons, over 1 million gallons of water on a 6-inch line that's cracked. So it's just finding stuff like that, and we knew it was hurting us because it was in town. This tank was struggling, and when you get into the vast other areas of the system, sometimes it's harder to locate that way. But we knew we were specifically in this area, there's something going on. We found it down at the water plant right on the river. So it was worse somewhere you couldn't see it real well. And we looked everywhere for it. In
Cold
town.
weather can affect this a little more too, because it can cause some snaps and breaks in these pipes, especially during the thawing process.
Most all y'all have in towns is ductile iron or some type of metal. And metal's more susceptible to a cold than plastic is, but plastic can, but metal's more likely to do so. If it has a
The good
leak.
thing around here is that normally your frost line, your freeze line, doesn't penetrate very deep. So your water lines usually are well below the frost line. questions about your water loss report? I'll keep moving, and next is, engineering report from Mid-10. Evan?
Me and Tommy went down Friday and met with SRF. They call it a pre-construction meeting. It really ain't pre-construction, that's what they call it. I call it more like pre-application, but we basically went down and tried to get some more information on the way the SRF is starting to do their loan program. And we wanted to get some questions, I guess verified mostly for y'all. And the way they're doing their program now is to get the money, they sent a letter out telling y'all they had the money there, and if you want to proceed with the project, to let them know. What they want now is, in order for them to come back and give y'all information, they want, and Tommy's gonna help me out on all this, cause we was there for a while, but, they want engineered plans and specs, so they basically want this project shovel ready to go to construction. In that, they want y'all to pay those fees up front to get us to that point. They're 100% reimbursable once it goes to construction. So your first draw would be the reimbursement on our expenses. But they're gonna have to have those in place before they will give you your financial, I call it almost like an audit. Basically, they're gonna take y'all's financials, look at them, and make sure you can do the project at your current water rates. If you can't do it at the current water rates, they're gonna tell you what it's gotta be to do the project. You would have to adopt those rates to do the project. Me and Tommy's run the numbers, and it looks to us like there won't be an increase, that it would stand on its own. But they're gonna be the ones to tell you that. The only, and they told us the project would get funded, me and Tommy verified that. They said if you done the plans and specs, that you would get a project out of it, so that gamble was off the table with them.
That's what
We was afraid y'all would have these plans and specs laying on the shelf and never be able to go to construction. They said it would go to construction. It's the only, I guess the gamble y'all would be the rates, if they would have to increase or if they would just remain the same. But you won't find that out, and I'll get that clarified in an email, and I can send that if y'all need it, but that was clarified today that yes, they have to have the plans and specs before they'll begin.
When they look at your potential rate, are they taking into account monies that you hold in CDs and reserves that you could draw from to mitigate that rate increase?
Yes.
Could you draw from your own fund balance if necessary?
Yes, sir. What they do is, and I'll go through it real quick, and we'll continue down that path. Right now, they give us a rate sheet as of 12/09, and I think that's in y'all's packet.
Yeah.
But if you look at the green section on that paper, at 20 years, what this note would be. So you're at 1.63%. If you look, y'all's this ATPI, which is in blue, that's your ability to pay index. Y'all are at 70% is what you're truly at. So really you'd be at a 1.14%. But to be on the safe side, I would not base my calculations on the 1.14. That's what it would be today if you locked it in. But the worst case is 1.63. The rates fluctuate every month. They expect them to go down next month, but we won't be that far into it. The way SRF works different from USDA is when you get ready to sign the loan or sign to do the project, they lock your rate in. USDA, you have to wait till you're almost done with the project, which could be 2 to 3 years down the road, then you find out what your rate is. So that is a benefit to SRF. You will know what your rate is before you ever begin the project. Of course, the engineering you're going to do up front, but from that point on, you're going to know what the rate's going to be. So I figured it on 1.63. That would be a high rate for this project. That would make y'all be liable for $103,000, give or take, every year. So what they do is they take all your debts, they add this to it as a debt, and then they take your revenues and they make sure you're not in the negative. As long as you're in the positive, you will get it at your current rates. If that makes sense to you.
The rate adjustment that was made that took into account Core Civic, that was non-budgeted, will go a pretty good way to help offset that kind of a payment.
We go 100.
Your current loans are $16.57, $16,000, probably $50 a month, what we're paying now on the, that's two different
On the
projects.
two different.
If you add this one, it would be somewhere around 25,000 a month,
Month.
total for all three. So that's what you pay per month.
It's safe to say, me and Tommy feel like the rates will stay the same if you was to seek this out of funding. We don't anticipate a rate increase.
Keep in mind, when the mayor and I went to the USDA meeting, and their rate is 3.5%. Right now. So you're getting one possibly less than 1.63, so.
Which is less than the rate of inflation.
So I mean, it's,
Now, does this loan also carry that principal forgiveness clause?
It does, but me and Tommy found out.
Explain that to me.
Well, there ain't gonna be much explaining now. 10,000. The new governor is his. I guess they call it a priority. I guess is really what they call it. His priority was distressed counties, lower income type counties. He's trying to help. And since y'all's projected census population is over 10,000, they say that it's not going to be an option to get any grant on this. That being said, y'all are sitting at like 7,800 people on the last official one,
Which counts?
which counts.
Which count do we go by?
They're saying we will not. They told
Do we go by the count that was in place when we filed the application? Or do we go by the new census?
Well, they're using the projected data,
they're using projected.
which is not
Now TDEC has
totally
tried to do
official.
it,
So.
they've tried to do us that way too, but we've always argued with them about it. We might not lose this, we might lose this one, I don't know.
So here's what I told Tommy. I said I would not count on getting the grant, but hope that you do.
Hope that you do.
So
Let it
but
be
they
a
would not-
surprise.
Yeah.
I know the town of Montego got an $8 million loan from them, and they got about 40% forgiveness on it, so it pretty nice. It's like a grant within a loan, I think of it as.
If that comes to be, does that come at the end, or where does that come
Yes.
at the end?
That's probably why they're using projected. If it comes at the end, the new census numbers will be out by then, and we probably will be over.
Are we
10,000
talking
by
the
then.
end of the loan or the end of the construction
End of
project?
the construction. Your
I
loan
think if it's
started.
the end of the loan, well, none of us probably be around
Well,
this
say
table
your,
then.
according to them, the loan started when you signed it to get your first reimbursement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unlike USDA where you wait till the very end and you're actually signing on as soon as you do your reimbursements. That way your rates.
My understanding of some of that was gonna be the availability of funds or how much demand there was for it.
That is
If they
correct.
might raise that threshold
Mhm.
to more.
Well, it was a first come, first serve. As soon as you get in line, you get to fund it. And that's what me and Tommy wanted to make sure was like, if we do this, then and there ain't no funds. But what it is, they said if they didn't have them during that physical year, you're already in the queue for the next one. So it's not that you won't get to construction. You just might not get there the same year that you put there, or the same as soon as you put the plans in.
In this scenario, what's hurting us on the census numbers is the fact that the U.S. government counts the prisoners in your census numbers. There were some groups that tried to get it changed and say they would still count where they came from because their intention was to go back and they're not here voluntarily, but that didn't get done and they still count for the place of incarceration. So and that's about 2,550 average.
And I had, Tommy to give you our estimated, cost of the project. The part that we gotta do a, facilities, planning document has gotta be submitted, and plans and specs, which is, I don't know if y'all heard of preliminary engineering reports. It's basically a preliminary engineering report with an environmental inside of it, so there's quite a bit of time and effort on our end to produce that document and the plans and specs. So that would be 75% of our design fees is where we would be setting, up front, to get it to SRF for them to come back to you.
That's right at $70,000.
The other 25% is bidding it out and seeing it all through construction, so. And we might not be there, we do everything, you know, whatever our hours work up to be, but I'm trying to give y'all a very realistic idea of where.
What do you need from us today, or is this
You
information
would have,
sharing?
y'all just need to vote to proceed on, and the first thing I have seen in is a IER, an internal, environmental review, that tells them y'all are gonna go on with it. And then they're waiting for us to produce these documents before they'll consider it a full application, so.
The reason they.
Right now, y'all never voted, right now, we was just seeing where y'all was gonna be, so, if you wanna proceed on with the tank project, then.
I make a motion to proceed.
Okay. Your second?
Second.
Okay. We probably need to reflect in the minutes the specific name for this project, so if they ever look back, they can identify what we were agreeing to support. And I guess we will call it a 2 million gallon storage tank project,
Yes, they're calling
if
it,
that's
they're
suitable.
calling it a distribution systems improvement, a new 2 million gallon, water storage tank.
Who seconded it?
Mark,
But this would take care of 2 tanks, just so y'all know, this is to do away with the tanks that's in bad shape and replace it.
those edits agreeable to you two that made the motion and the second, Craig and Mark? We slightly edited your motion, is that acceptable?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Other discussion?
I have just a question, the, estimate on the construction cost, what
Yes,
is that based off of?
Rates as of, recent rates as far as.
Recent construction for something of this
Yes.
type, or?
Yes,
So bid should reflect in the ballpark then?
oh, yes.
That was my.
I try to be high bidder. And I can't remember off the top of my head, I got it in front.
So
We got 100,
we should realistically, or feel like this is realistic figure.
yes,
Yeah, you got a 10% contingency.
yeah, that's what I'm saying,
$142,000
that's what I'm saying, I take contingencies, that's what that's in there for.
Now, is T-Dec okay with the contingency on this project, cause they were not okay with the contingency on the landfill?
They should be.
Well, they weren't, so.
It's
Well,
really
was
up
it-
to us to set it, so.
Was it in the 10% range?
It was a little over, I think it was like 13-15%, something like
Do you
that.
remember what they?
But it was the type of, it could have been the type of grant project, where it's a different grant, so it could be the way that one was structured, they said they didn't allow contingencies on that one.
No,
So, but that was old landfill facilities grant, not
This
this.
cost estimate went in with the initial application, so.
Well, quite frankly, I don't see how we cannot do this. I mean, with these figures, with these interest figures and the cost and the condition of those tanks, I'm just delighted that it's coming in at this.
And just for the record, that it was nearly 1.6 million to rehab these old ones.
Right.
So you're gonna put one
Right.
larger tank that would just be away with. And it's concrete, stressed concrete, so less maintenance. It's not got no metal, no worry about. Unless you choose to paint it, you can, but you don't have to.
And even if you rehab the others, you still got 30 to 40-year-old tanks.
And then you've got 10-year maintenance schedules to keep painting them and redoing them, so it's
Fickle. Thank
Alright, we have a motion and, on the floor to, accept this project and move forward. That would be your 2 million gallon, new concrete storage tank. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It is approved. You have anything else?
We're still working on PDBG, of course.
Yeah.
So it'll be getting, we still are planning on January on it. As soon as the environmental's released, we're gonna submit those to the state, and then construction will follow.
Evan has to leave, to go to another meeting, so board members, if you have any other questions for him,
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you for working hard on
Yes,
this.
we'll get started on it.
next is general manager's report. Tommy will start down through yours.
Yeah, you got those sealed bids though.
All right, if you'll remember from last month, we had some discussion on some CD money. We wanted to solicit bids from both of our local banks. We did so, soliciting bids for $500,000 and also for $1 million CD in various categories. Citizens Bank, and I can pass this around so you can look at it, but 500,000 1 year is 2.1369, and it's also the same rate for $1 million. The 2 year on Citizens is 2.1877, and the same for $1 million. The 3 year at Citizens is 2.2385, the same for 500,000 or $1 million. And we'll circulate those around and let them end up with Mary Dale when it's over. Wilson Bank, 500,000 and $1 million for 1 year is 1%. At 2 year, both of them, both the dollar amounts are at 1.2%, and at 3 years, 1.35, both amounts. Both of these are dated 12/16/19 and presented to us in a sealed bid format.
Look at that.
I think the question to ask might be, one, how much money do you want to tie up in it, and then for what length of time? Did the Citizens did it say whether there were any fees associated?
Just early withdrawal penalties.
That's
only-
typical anywhere.
Yeah, only fees associated with these accounts would be for an early withdrawal penalty. It's their actual percentage yield if you buy. And, I know I had talked to both of them and they said, after our meeting the other day, that there wouldn't be any fees because they had overheard, evidently they were watching the feed and that had come up as a topic if there was, I brought up that there might be fees involved in it, and they both assured me that there weren't.
Okay, board, do we have a recommendation?
$1 million for 3 years at Citizens Bank.
If we're not gonna need it, $1 million
Yeah, what do you think?
quicker than 3 years.
We still have what in the,
Well, we've got 2.6 million right now in our money market account.
Plus, we already have CDs, and the one with Wilson Bank was 671, and there's a 4,
Now, the 671 is the one that
That,
has come.
it matured,
That's in my
and
money
we
market.
added monies with it, to
We do
come up
have
to the
another
million.
one coming due at April the 6th at Wilson Bank for 450,000.
okay, and there's already another one with Citizens.
Yeah,
I'm just trying, I'm pulling out my memories,
no, we've already
all
done.
in cloud.
We have a motion to, lock in $1 million, at Citizens for 3 years. Is there a second?
Citizens,
yeah, that's it. Okay, well, now.
who, all right, I'm
There's a
sorry,
second.
who made that motion?
Mark,
Okay,
is there a second?
We still doing that?
0.05%. Or wait a minute, what were the rates on Citizen?
2.1877, 2.125.
So 0.05% difference to go to 2 year. I mean, it's or 0.05 to go to, I mean, it'd be 0.1% to go to 1 year versus 3 year.
I hate to tie it up for 3 years.
I kinda head for 0.1% or go for 2 years for 0.05%.
Not getting a
loss.
second, that motion will die. Now, is there a new motion?
First of all, are we still okay with the million? That's what I'm really wanting to know.
But could you give us an idea of where we are? Totals, kind of, we've got saved.
2.6 million in our money market account.
That'd leave 1.6 million in money market.
That'll, yeah, we also have 2 other CDs. One is at Citizens, it's 537,000, it won't mature until 2023. We have 457,000 at Wilson Bank that will mature in April 2020. That we'll need to do something with.
And plus from some of your, current financial statement, you're seeing that some of your, water sales is exceeding your budget, so that is also dumping into your money market.
Right
That's
now,
why I say go with $1 million, because, I mean.
I think I'm okay.
I'm good
with $1 million.
I think I'm good with
1.6,
$1
after that, then in April, you got another 400 plus coming right
Could
back
do.
there.
Again,
Two
could do it
different
again,
CDs.
but I just hate to tie it up more than 2 years.
You could hack it up, do one.
For no more difference
Do
in it.
one for 1 year, one for 30.
Just looking to max it,
I understand.
and with that much money floating around, I don't see us needing it.
Well, I mean,
Is there a recommendation?
If it gets that bad, you pay the penalty and blow it out.
pay out 12 months interest would be the penalty if you.
On a 3 year.
6 months interest on a 2 year, 6 one, half dozen another. I mean, these are good rates. I mean, these are unreal.
I figured it'd be more competitive than that.
Well, you see.
million at 3 years, that'll put us at 2023 for that.
Let me see the sheets one more
Some
time.
people need
myself.
deposits and some don't. I don't know why they wanna pay 2% when they can borrow money from the Fed for 1/4%. They don't need the money in deposits to allow them to make loans, as long as they're in good standing, capital wise. I guess that's the difference. I don't know.
Do the math for us there, Mayor.
I'm not sure I'm doing it right. to be honest with you. It's annual percentage, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, if you do 2.1877 should be $21,877
That's for the 1 year.
for 1 year, a year. If you do it on the 2 year, and that's a 2.1877, so Do that 2 years, do 43,754, if my math is correct.
Got a recommendation?
I think with all the projects we had looking at, just having this back, I'd be more comfortable with a 2 year versus 3 year, given all the projects we got coming up. So I'll make a motion, we do the 2 years at $1 million at Citizens Bank.
I'll second that.
Other discussion? Have a motion to do it to a $1 million 2-year CD at Citizens Bank. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Is
$500,000
approved.
You don't wanna do $500,000 for a year? Got 2.6 million in money on it.
So what she's questioning, if we wanna do more, like another $500,000 and put it on a 1 year instead of a
Good.
2 year or something?
Or can we wait till April when that other one matures?
That's what I was kinda.
That was kinda where I was.
Revisit it in April when we got that
If we
come
get this
up.
rated right here again, though.
Well.
It'll go up.
I think so.
Oh, yeah. It'll go up. I'm betting on it. Trust me. Trust me.
It hasn't.
It will.
It's
I
not.
gotta have the same funds, you revisit this in April. so
That's what I was
We got
thinking.
another one we have to deal with.
We may do $1 million, then take it and roll it into
Yeah.
another $1 million.
Okay. Any other discussion on the CDs? Next is an ordinance that clarifies duties and responsibilities of the water board.
How did that go in
Is this what is this the language now, is all of this language new? I guess is my question. Is there anything in existence that said?
Not in writing, but in principle, this is the way we have been operating.
Okay. So this is all new verbiage?
Yes.
Okay.
Except for terms of office. The terms of office, the commission did approve a few years ago.
Right.
The payment, the commission approved a few years ago. The other verbiage, I think, is gonna be new, but it is the basic way this board operates, has operated, and operates at the present time.
It's what we're doing and have been doing, it's just written down.
Yes.
Okay.
So did this already go, this is for the county commission to approve?
Yes, if we're good with it, it will be submitted to the county commission for their approval. As an ordinance, it would need to be read and approved 2 times, 2 different months.
There's only one thing y'all might wanna clarify, and it's, I know y'all renew September is when y'all do y'all's new members, right, if you vote somebody differently. This is
Typically after
January
election.
1st, do y'all want
Probably.
this to reflect September instead of January?
Well, that gives that body time to be organized to do this.
But I just wanted to point
The
that out.
commission has other committees and boards that operate on different cycles.
I just wanna
So
make sure
this
y'all
would
are
not
aware.
be unusual.
I don't think that would be an issue at all.
As long as y'all good, that was the only thing.
It would probably make more sense for it to be January 1st, even with the change in the commission and committees. Like our new committees now, we're in the process of electing new chairman, we didn't really, they're not.
I
really
think our
starting yet.
training that we are subject to goes by calendar year also, so
Okay.
keeping our terms on a calendar year might make sense. We will, yeah, if you're good with it, we need a motion, we'll discuss it and then vote it.
Tim,
is there anything in here that talks about how these can be amended or changed? I didn't see that.
Maybe we'll make all rules and regulations about.
Look at number
date.
K.
Okay. Approved regulation, all things necessary, approved county water sewer system. So if you changed your policy, it would not necessarily have to go back to the commission?
Policies would not.
Okay.
This board oversees policy-making
Okay.
decisions.
The only thing I'm a little bit hesitant on would be H, and that's, when talking about when they submit the budget. Last year, when we were going through the budget, and the comptroller's office was asking us basically to pick a statute we wanna be under for budgeting purposes. And consulting with the county attorney and the comptroller's office, we decided it'd probably be the county general, budgeting law, which I think requires the departments, aside from the school, have their budget submitted by March 1st. And it's supposed to be voted on by April 1st, and then the school's supposed to submit theirs by May 1st. I believe that's the dates. So the only thing I would like to just add something here, say maybe some language that says that it will comply with any budgeting statutes or ordinances established by the county commission.
I would rather say something just like that than put a hard and
Date.
fast date in. I would rather say something that we will submit a budget as directed by the county at an appropriate time as directed by the county mayor.
Or subject to the county budgeting policies or something like that. So basically, we're gonna get rid of the April 1st and May 1st and say that it
Right.
was.
Cause if the county changes what budgeting statute they're under, if it changes the date, then if you leave this to say whatever the county adopts as the budgeting dates required, then it would automatically go along with it. And
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Can you word that the way you?
Trying to look at it.
Been worded.
The utility board will approve a budget for the county commission's water and sewer department in accordance with
County budgeting procedures.
budgeting statutes or ordinances
Adopted by
adopted by the county commission.
More time.
Right?
The utility board will approve a budget for the county government's water and sewer department in accordance with budgeting statutes or ordinances adopted by the county commission,
Budgeting statutes adopted
or ordinances
or ordinances.
adopted by the county commission, or adopted by the county government.
Metro government or county government?
Well, here you got county government in different ones, so I would just put county government and keep it uniform.
This was modeled, and by the way, modeled after your sister government in Lynchburg. Or Lewis, or where did it?
Lynchburg, Moore County.
Moore County.
Well, they've got a different contact at the comptroller's office. Ours is one us to pick one, so. And they may have picked one if it had an April 1st date.
Yes. I think the ordinance says that we were to submit one by April, the original ordinance that y'all had. That's the only thing it's stated in
Well,
there.
it's gonna have to move up for us to be in compliance from April to May to March to April. That's what we're looking at having to do, basically.
I had a motion, did I get a second on that?
No.
I think we got into editing before I did. Okay,
Let it die.
we'll let it die. Let's go now with the edited ordinance. Is there a recommendation?
I'll make a motion, we approve these
ordinances with the changes that were made.
Craig makes a motion. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Have a second. Additional discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Next is discussion of fire hydrants. Tommy, you wanna lead off on that one?
Yeah, I just sharing the rest of the board, most the mayor and the chairman was aware of it. Y'all seen the piece in the paper, I'm sure. Had a fire hydrant not functioning. They had a little issue trying to get the hydrant to work. And after that happened, we went out and just did a maintenance check to make sure there wasn't more, cause we wasn't aware of the one that was not functioning. Just when I first came here, we spent some time, they spent a lot of money on repairing old hydrants. We went out and checked all the ones in town. We're gonna try to finish all the rural areas too, just to do this maintenance check. And out of the 195 in town, there's about 19 that had issues. And we think we can fix some of them fairly quickly, just waiting on some parts to come in. Not all of them, but some of them need replaced. And I did do some information, historical, about the year dates, and got y'all a chart showing how old some of them are, how many we got. And my goal, I would not have chose to do the repairs, I'd have replaced them, but that's my, and we had replaced one here recently, somebody knocked what. If something happens to one of them, I just go ahead and replace them. The one that got knocked over on the Saturday before the fire, it was not a breakaway. It was old, that tells you there it's old, because new hydrants are breakaways now. So it got knocked on, all caused a lot of water loss, and we ended up replacing it with a hydrant that will break away. Now if somebody hits it, it won't cause that much aggravation, it can be fixed at our convenience and not have to hurry and rush. And we are going to try our best in March, when the weather breaks, to get on fire flow testing. Right now is not a good time, because cold water, cold weather, you'll have every weakness in your line will be found when you start flowing them. Just like these leaks we're having with the cold, but you'll cause them flowing hydrants. You can cause them in this type of weather. But we will get on. And getting on color code will help the fire department know a little more about what they're dealing with.
So many of these hydrants are 60 years old.
Yeah, there's a sheet showing how old, the years.
54 is the oldest, and I think there's 3 or 4 that are that age.
They still utilize the same fittings over the years. These guys hook up to
Yes.
1954 model just
Yes.
as easily as a 2020.
Same wrench will open them, same fittings will screw onto the fitting fixtures.
The only difference is, depending on how old it is, to repair one, it almost is cheap enough to buy a new hydrant. So some of these older models, it might be $1,000 just to buy all the rubber gaskets, the fitting, the full replacements on them. So you're looking at no more than a few $100 difference.
This has been a bone of contention and issue for years, and I don't know why we're still here dealing with it, to be honest with you. I know when we had the warehouse fire down here, the first one we hooked to over there fell off in our hands. And at that time, it was supposed to be all be looked at, all be tested, all be color coded. And that's been 5 years, 6 years now.
Probably, yes.
So, I'm new to this board. I'm not blaming blame on him or his predecessor or the board or the fire department or anybody. I'm just saying, folks, we gotta address this and address it quickly and get it taken care of, in my opinion. And that's all I want to say about it. And I know there's always going to be the 1 or 2 that you don't know about till you get there. Unless you're out there, it could work this week and next week it not work. But we've had a lot of negative publicity on this for the water board. the man who lost his house, some of the comments that were made to him that night, has put us in a situation of possible legal jeopardy, in my opinion, from comments that he's made to me personally. It's just a bad situation. I don't know what this board's responsibility is to try to make sure this doesn't happen again, but it certainly doesn't need to happen again, if we can help it.
Well, flow testing hydrants and inspecting them needs to be the responsibility of the water and sewer department. They need to be done annually so that those hydrant valves are completely open. They need to flow. That needs to be part of the flushing step that Tommy goes through for other things. And a good thorough flow test has not happened here in a long time. We don't have any records to produce to show that it did, but that will be one of the factors that they'll ask for that data whenever you request an update in your ISO rating score.
Yep.
Flow data on hydrants is one of the pieces of that puzzle.
Just asking, how hard is it to replace a hydrant? On average, I mean, I know each one's different.
Depends on what you have to do to it. Sometimes like this one that got knocked off here in town across from the fire department, we buy a special hydrant with a special hookup on it. It's an alpha connection. It grips right onto it. You tighten it down, it's there. It holds 260 pounds of pressure. And we try to kick them too to make sure they won't blow off. But that's what you get into. Anytime you release them, anything under pressure, if you, like over here in town on these, there wasn't no valve to control on them. They're not in the ground to have a shut-off valve to kill. Ideally, it's nice to have a three-way valve at a hydrant. You kill this side, take all the pressure down, release it. You can do whatever with that hydrant without damage, hurting somebody, hurting you, hurting a man. Because if you ain't careful, it'll blow right off of them because you got pressure on. We got into that trying to fix the hydrant. It was a problem that night. We probably shut off 20 valves in town here and they got the water off of it yet. The one at the church. If we was going to replace it, go ahead and get a new one. We went by all our, what our maps are. We tried other valves that we found. We dug up a few that we found that was missing. We found one or two of them and tried them, didn't work. I've got a price, you can tap valves live into the pipe. The machine to do it with, I got a tentative price on one, it's like $69,000. It does up to 4 to 12 inch pipe. It'll insert a valve in. You tap it just like you would a normal tap for a service, but it has an insert. Depending on what it is, there's different styles and kinds of machines. Currently, there's not one on any of our buying co-ops, which I can ask them to add themselves to that, and that's going to take a little time. But you can buy the one tool will do whatever you buy for it. In other words, I can just buy the 6 and the 8 because that's what most is in town. But I may have to do something over here if I want to hurry. I may have to have some inserted. I can pay that done. Company will come in here for $3,000 or $4,000 a pop plus mileage. They'll insert them for you. But ideally, if we're going to maintenance hydrants, it'd be nice to be able to, because we don't know how many more instances we're going to get into that you can't shut a line down. We got into that just if it's a general service, you can open fire hydrants up and deal with a leak. You can get the water off of you long enough to fix it. If it's 6 inches, you ain't gonna deal with those 6 inches. That just ain't happening. It'll eat you lunch, you keep up with it, you won't be able to keep up with it. I'd have to look into that. I don't have nothing to give to you yet. I'd have to look into what it costs to do that, to get a machine to tap valves. They can do them themselves, because I think the fee was like $4,800 to come and train us on how to use it. And if you get some competitive with other tap people, they may come show you how to do it.
Well, right now, if we don't know how many times we're gonna run into this situation where we can't turn it off and they have to tap it live, I think if we can get it done for $3,000, if we hire somebody to come in and tap it. I don't see buying a $70,000 piece of equipment, you know, you'd have to, what, tap 20 to ever justify the cost of it, and we're not looking at having to do that.
Yeah,
Always on all of them, are we?
Around 30,000 or so for just the 4, the 6 and the 8.
Okay.
But the same machine does all those.
I'm
If you
sorry, I
ever-
thought you said it was $68,000.
It is from a 4 to a 12.
Okay.
But if you just do a 6 and 8, it's less. Well, and that's mostly what you got in town, 6 and 8. It's just a thought.
Do you have a procedure in play? I don't, I'm not familiar with it, but to do all those, do you hit every fire hydrant yearly, do a flow test, take a look at it?
We going to, we just hadn't done it.
Hadn't gotten to that point. It's historically with this.
You've not done it in a long time that I can
Yeah.
tell. You've had data, but, and that's why the hydrants we didn't color code them back the way they were because we flowed 1 or 2 of them and they were wrong.
Whatever old data.
And I
we
didn't
had
want to
was
do them
like-
wrong because
Yeah.
that's bad too, to get on a hydrant you think's gonna flow and it don't, it's missing it.
Yeah.
It's either more or less, cause red fire hydrant means you cannot pump from it. You take chances on sucking the line into. If it's above a red or go to orange and you can pump from that. And then on up you can pump from those, but
And a little further in your packet data, there was a policy on fire hydrants, I think it's toward the end, that has the color coding language in it,
yes,
and they're expected to flow a certain number of gallons per minute, and then that color code corresponds to that.
I mean, the ones we found to be deficient, we painted them black so the fire department at least know not fool, they don't need to waste time on them. And that's the other reason for doing this as quick as we could get it done, is make sure they wouldn't know more out there that they were not aware of.
This
That we were not aware.
that is the subject of all of this. Was it painted black?
No, one it was, there was one on the other street that y'all looked at, but it was painted black,
We knew it was
we
black.
knew it was black.
This one was expected to be an operational hydrant, and
Mm-hmm.
it failed.
It didn't have any, it didn't have any bolts in the body for whatever reason. Just spun freely.
I think, currently, right now, if I go through it, we got 9 different types of hydrants out there, and you're trying to go down to, as you replace them, just use 1 or 2 manufacturers.
My goal would be to try to make, no more than 2 to 3 brands. You keep your tools to replace them. The US pipe, we don't have that many of them in this system, but that's one of the simplest hydrants I've ever got into to replace it. You loosen 2 bolts, twist the head out, and you got it all out in the ground before you know it. It's less than 15 minutes to take it apart. It's one of the simplest ones. And then you buy the American Darlings. They're a little cheaper, but they're easy to fix too. They're not as simple, but they're easy to fix.
What about Mueller?
Mueller, you got more of them than any hydrant, but most of them are aged. They're older.
Are they still
Well,
making
that-
hydrants?
Those are the tests we did. All we did when we went out and checked them, we charged the barrel and pressurized it, which the hard part sometimes open hydrants getting over the pressure. When you pressure, you get that water on both sides of your line, that valve turns a lot easier because there's nothing fighting it. When you're trying to open a hydrant, that's when it's the hardest. And once you get it open, it starts coming on. But if that valve operates
And
to
the way a
us,
fire hydrant opens,
it
you've
functions.
got the above ground barrel, and then there is a long stem, screw stem, that seats in the base at where it joins the main. And that seat drops to close it off, and then when you open the valve, you're raising that seat and letting the water flow up into the barrel.
So with this many hydrants and
checking on this stuff. I mean, you could almost keep one person busy just doing that all the time.
You're not gonna be able to do them all quickly,
Any one person can't do it.
You have to have two people to do the
What I'm
test.
saying though is the one that we had problems with could have been checked and it could have went bad after it was checked.
Listen,
I'm talking about an ongoing
The
inspection.
utility, we have a rule right now, we can't guarantee these things work, we don't guarantee nobody nothing, we don't guarantee pressure or flow. We could test it this year and then 6 months from now, it might fail.
Yeah.
It's a mechanical device, it's in the worst environment in the world, wet, and it rusts, and it can seize up. It's just, we can't guarantee
Do
it.
they not make better fire hydrants now?
No,
Most of the internal workings are brass,
Brass.
so it holds up better than steel.
steel.
But still, you can get some pitting and corrosion on
I
brass.
get that, but I'm talking, we got 50, 60, 70-year-old hydrants that, I don't care if they're working or not, they need to be replaced, period.
Yeah,
You got 44 hydrants that were put in 1986, I don't know why they went hog wild in 1986, but, I mean, there's 44
well, you
installed
might
in
have
1 year.
construction going on or something special.
There's nothing going on in 86 in Hartsville,
I
except
don't know.
everybody heading out of town.
They might be moved.
Maybe when they upgraded one service.
They may be.
Which is fine, I mean, but I'm just saying,
Well, now, an 86 hydrant doesn't mean you actually bought it in 86. They're on the market, so you could possibly buy it. But they might have done like some people do. They'll go, if they're in stock somewhere, they'll go buy them up. They might have been cheaper. at the
I
time.
guess I misunderstood, it looked like there were 44 installed in 1986.
No, that's the year date
That's the
on the
manufacturer.
They put a date
Manufacturing
stamp,
date.
a
You
date
could have
stamp
bought
on
them either, you
Hydrant.
know.
I could see somebody in
Okay.
Hartsville buying 44 fire hydrants and not doing it.
Well, I'm just saying, it could have been bought in a different year, but they
I guess
manufactured.
my point is long-term fixing the problem. I get what you're saying, you can't guarantee anything. I guess as a homeowner and a citizen, all due respect, that kind of scares me. If we can't guarantee nothing, then why do we bother putting them up? And that's nothing against you.
That's normal utility rules everywhere that way. We don't guarantee.
But Mark, the flip side of that is if we get on a regular maintenance schedule of every year,
Yeah.
then we're not likely to catch too many that go bad within that
Sure.
year.
And I'm good with that. I just wanna know that we've got some sort of ongoing plan, not just go through a mad dash, or let's check them all, and then 6 years, we ain't looked at nothing. I mean, I know if I were a firefighter, I'd be pissed off if I come out there and I can't get water and I'm watching this house burn, cause I'm here to do a job and I can't do the job. And if I'm a homeowner, I'm probably a little upset, but, and I'm not knocking any of this back on the water department. Playing catch up on a lot of things from stuff not being done for decades before you got here, but, I just think we can be better than that. And just looking through there, I know a lot of them passed and everything, but then there was a lot, this is leaking, or, this, how much does that contribute to our water loss? Just asking.
Well, it only leaks when you open it.
Okay.
So if you're charging it, it could spray you or it could be. The biggest worry about a hydrant, just like that in Novara, and the guys did do this, they opened it without, the one that y'all had trouble with, the first, it got open and we didn't think we were gonna be able to close it. Which was, we needed to make sure we could shut the line down before we done that. We did get it closed. We had to actually take the pressure off of it to get it closed. Getting it on a schedule, doing these tests, it helps you find the problem, but it doesn't give a guarantee that it's always gonna operate once it's used. You don't do it once a year.
Is that once a year
It's just,
that
that's like a
standard?
maintenance
That's
check.
typical? Once a year we hit
'Cause it
every,
takes-
all the hydrants in the system, we hit them once a year.
If a hydrant
That's
flowed,
what's
if
required.
all of them flowed around 1,000 gallon a minute.
By his-
By estimate.
Okay.
But what if we checked them twice a year?
You could do the maintenance check like we did plus flow on, that would help a little bit.
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't care if you had to hire another man and we had to fund another man, it would be worth that.
Well,
To check them twice a year, check them 3 times a year. Cause I'm kind of with Dwight here,
let me throw you out
leave our
some
nose open a little bit.
If you to flow test a hydrant, you have to have 2 men actually. One has to look at the hydrant behind him and give it a residual pressure while this is flowing, cause you gotta know what your residuals left in the main versus what it's flowing. That, if the hydrant can flow 1,000 gallon a minute, let's say you're doing 195, that's how many we had in town. 1,000 times 195, that's 195,000 gallons. It takes 5 to 8 minutes of flushing to get an accurate test, cause you have to turn the water on, let the hydrant flow for at least 5 to 8 minutes. Cause you have to let that tank stabilize or we're losing water, and you gotta see what when that tank stabilizes from the loss, then you get the reading. So you're looking at a lot of water loss there, just flushing these to get those tests done. And you might do maybe 10 a day, cause you're gonna tax your water plant down here to keep up with it. So we might do
Flow a lot of water to test.
You're gonna flow a
Let's
lot of
try
water
that.
test.
But you
Like in
can use that
2020,
as
they can come up with a
countable
better way to do
water
it.
in your
You
water
know where it
loss.
went, yes.
Yeah.
You know where it
I'm
went.
just
I'm
saying.
just, I know, I'm not
That's
trying to
what-
tell you your job, you know how to do your
So
job, I
that's
don't,
the
I'm just saying.
procedure that you have to go.
I guess I'm
If
a
you're
little,
flushing a hydrant, you can, that can be water that's factored into your
Yeah.
water loss report
We'll keep,
because you know what you're doing. You know where
You
that
count
water's
for
going.
you're not gonna
You
hurt
had
us
it
as
open
far
for
as
30
that.
minutes and it was flowing 500 gallons.
We know that,
I-
but we got
I
the
just-
flow data.
feel like we could sacrifice some water loss for the sake of being able to
This-
save a house. if we
This
had to.
technically ain't loss of water, you're counting for it, you are wasting the water.
And I ain't trying to make more work for y'all,
No,
I'd
I
be
mean, it's
okay
gotta
if we
be,
hired another person,
Yeah.
if we had to.
Well, there are companies that you can hire to come in and will test and color code and fix everything that you've got, if you wanna go that route. But
Well,
that's gonna cost a lot of money too.
Figure 10 a day and 195, that's that 3 weeks, 3 weeks, we could probably get it knocked
we
out.
might could get them done,
If we,
That's just in town, right?
just in time.
I just wish we could set aside.
Most of the rural
Most of
hydrants
the
don't
rural-
flow enough
You know,
to be used for firefighting. It's just the ones in the old city limits.
They won't ever hit the 500 limit.
Right.
Well, just like I'm a 2-year-old, why do they even put them out there then?
divert the line.
We
They're
never,
pressure relief on the water main.
So they're not
Air
actual
in the line,
hydrants.
you need to get
our
air out.
utility, our focus on is water quality issues. If we have a main break, we flush that water out, make sure it's clean. That's what we use them for. They use them for a whole different purpose, for fighting.
We can fill a tanker off of those,
Yeah,
but
they
we
can fill it.
cannot hook an
Pump.
engine and pump off of it, cause we will raise the pressure too much, we could collapse the line.
But yeah, they could collapse.
Pull the
500
hydrant out of the
gallon,
ground.
or if it's 500 gallon, they take a chance on making that line suck together and
So
crush.
we need a new fire truck?
Got one.
So we've got
Now,
195.
We'll take another one if y'all wanna get us one.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around the issue.
The issue that they need to get on a regular schedule of
Yeah.
testing these things, so
Well-
that every year we know that each.
Well, I mean, I just know that 50 yards from my house there's a fire hydrant, you know, God forbid, you know. Me and my dogs are standing out in my front yard watching the house burn. I'd like to think, you know, that they could put it out, you know.
So you basically, they need to be flow tested every year, right? So we need annual flow testing. Can you do, I guess after you do the flow testing, you and I discussed this after
We
we
can
did.
reschedule them in a different way, you know, to do so many for the, like the hot months of the year, warmer months of the year, that's the best time to do them. You just, you know, from, you know, like, maybe April to July or August, try to get them all done. In a schedule that don't tax you, don't put a demand on us. We can go ahead and get them initially done as quickly as possible.
Once you flow test them, then paint them,
We will.
yeah, then. have
Well, they'll
them.
be marked what they should be.
Yeah.
And on top of that, when we get the mapping thing working, we can go into that mapping thing and add this hydrant at Halltown Road. This one runs, it can run up to this, how many gallon minutes it can run. That we tested it. This is the test data. This is the color it should be. Its location information's there, and all the hydrant data will be in there. That'll be done. I hope, you know, we're gonna get on doing that as soon as we get our tablet functioning.
We flow tested them, which ones, and painted them about 6 months ago.
year ago.
Tommy
We
repainted,
repainted
and
all
he
of it.
repaired the ones that he knew was bad or out of service.
Or painted the black so they would know that they were.
But it did not include all roughly 200 that are in the city system.
Okay.
But as it stands right now, if you've got one that's bad, can you replace it?
I would replace it with a new one, yes.
But I'm just saying, you're equipped to do that.
We know how to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we replaced the one up behind Daly's when that car hit it a couple weeks
We
ago.
did that night. It took the whole time to take it out, get the water off. Of course, it rained out from flooding, and we did in the rain, but it took about 5 hours to get that thing done.
They have insurance? They have cars?
They didn't catch who it was. They don't. Well, I ain't heard it, but that's the last I heard.
The thing
If it
I
had
would
been
like to
me,
see-
my license plate would have fell off right beside it.
The 3 people would have took pictures.
They took the remains of the plastic off of it with them, that's all I know.
What I would like to see is, and it's all been discussed already, flow test every hydrant, color code it, and GPS located. So I would like to see that done, so if we gotta add that in to the fire hydrant policy, then we'll do, I know number 7 says flow test and fire hydrant shall be performed by personnel only. Can we also add something in there giving a time range, or is it better to kind of leave
Yeah,
that?
you can do it yearly.
On an annual
You could
basis.
say annual.
On an annual basis.
I didn't give these y'all a pass tonight, I just give them to you to look over, because they come in late.
I think we need to pass it tonight if we're comfortable with it.
On the hydrant policy, on number 7,
7.
I would insert the language annual flow testing.
Flow testing of fire hydrants shall be performed annually by HTWSUD personnel only. Is that what you're saying?
That's fine.
Flow testing of fire hydrants shall be performed annually by personnel only.
When I looked at those on fire hydrant, that was the only edit that I saw. I thought the policy was well worded and well drafted.
Simple to the point.
I think the original thing we was looking at had both of them in one, and he
It did.
separated.
Well, I know the sprinkler systems we've talked about previously, and this is pretty much exactly what we talked about trying to do and the way that we're talking about going about it. So I'm comfortable with it as well.
And on the fee thing, he did add, there's a charge for a personal fire hydrant that belongs to someone per month, and he's a charge per head per month. So that he did add, because that's pretty general among other places. And actually, where we got that original policy to go with, they did the same thing there. Westwood.
We could pay them our own fire hydrant put in? Like our business, we could pay them our own fire hydrant put in?
Yeah, you pay that. There's a tap fee for it.
Not just think about that, 'cause we get a little dangerous out there sometimes. Do some sketchy stuff. Putting pepper in the radiator.
Do we, for where we've got a private fire hydrant, do we have any obligation for maintenance or anything else? And is there any language in this document that covers us on that? I haven't gotten,
I think it
I just
does-
thought about that.
Let's see. It says any private is at the customer's cost to take care of. It's not ours. We don't. It's in here. don't, I may have to find.
Typically, you have that in large industrial facilities
Mhm.
where a factory has their own or something like that.
Insurance
Bring on the fire
pay for itself.
So it might be.
Break them right.
Which one are you on now?
Well, I'm just referring to, I didn't really even realize there was such a thing as a private fire hydrant. It makes sense, but we've got a rate for it.
I would like to see us adopt this. If we need to tweak it, it's a simple amendment to change any part of it if we see something that pops back up. I know, because we've looked at it, we've talked about it, and, you know, it's past being needed done.
Number 5 on the fire sprinkler, it says that the fire sprinkler system, they shall be owned and
Okay.
installed, owned, and maintained by the customer. So if that's part of your system, you're
The
responsible.
private hydrant is part of the private system. Yeah, okay.
Of course, you have the right to say who can have one, if it's available, if it's the flow ain't there, then you may refuse it, you know, if it don't meet the requirement. Depending on what they need it for.
What's your recommendations on these two policies? They are separated before you tonight. It might be good to pass them as separated policies.
I make the motion that we adopt the fire sprinkler system policies and rate system.
Have a motion and a second to adopt fire sprinkler system policy. Additional discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Now we're to the one on fire hydrant, public fire hydrants. We did make an edit on item 7 to reflect that hydrant test would be done annually. A recommendation on fire hydrant policy.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Have a motion and a second to approve public fire hydrant policy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Tommy, anything else?
Don't worry unless y'all have anything.
Board members?
Back to this incident that happened with the house up here. Do we have any policy in place, for our employees or volunteers, about statements they make that can cause us possible legal complications? Or should we have anything along those lines? I think it, you know, I hate to think that our fire department personnel are making statements to homeowners, if I'd had water, I could have saved your house. Whether it's true or not, they shouldn't have said it. I have a real problem with that. I would have a problem with the water department saying if we could have got the hydrant working, we'd have saved your house. You can't make those blanket statements. Because you don't know that. You don't know how far, you could have had 2 pumper trucks on it and the house still burned up. I don't know. I'm not the fireman, I wasn't there. I don't want this to happen.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't think you're really ever gonna be able to keep people keeping their mouths shut. And in worst case, it ends up in the court of law. A fireman could not sit there and unequivocally say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I could have saved your house, you know, if I X or whatever, and vice versa with the water department. I just think you're dealing with people in the heat of the moment, and I just don't know how you'd ever write a policy and then realistically be able to enforce it. I agree with you completely, but trying to legislate common sense.
I think, I agree with what you all, both of you all are saying, but I think our major liability is making sure we are flowing these hydrants annually. I think that's where our real liability is, because I feel like if the fire code is for us to flow these every year and check them and they're not being done, yeah, we're in trouble.
I mean, it's all of the above, but, I know, well, we're into a society today where, particularly with social media, I mean, everything we say is scrutinized, is recorded, can come back to haunt us, and at least in training, Mr. Beeler try to address that please don't. And that's why when you have incidents, you have a person designated that talks to the media or talks to anyone about what's happening. I mean, that's just basic incident command structure, is so that you don't have things of that nature happening. But it was, and I'm not saying it's going to cause us any problem, but it is a question of liability. And God knows I'm pretty good at popping off too without thinking about the repercussions of things. So maybe I'm speaking from experience here, but I didn't know whether we needed to address it informally or formally, but I'll just pose that as a question.
Any other?
I think Craig's wanting me to speak to
No,
that.
I'm just saying, we got a lawyer here.
Well, but
Not in that capacity.
Right.
well, I would agree. I don't. On one hand, I don't like statements like that being made either, because number one, you can't guarantee that's true. But number two, you need to be very careful, because there's a thin line there about being honest with the citizens in creating this potential liability. You don't want to get into the situation where it looks like we're hiding something, or now all of a sudden our employees feel like they can't talk whatsoever. And so if we are going to go down this path, I would strongly suggest we consult legal counsel to see what is acceptable bounds and all those. I mean, just like we're looking at the personnel policy with the social media policy. But there's a fine line you got to cut there. And I would just say, if it's something we want to look at, we need to consult with legal counsel on that and see exactly where we need to draw that. I would just say, run right hand. If it comes up to questions from press or something, those should be directed to the general manager or the mayor. Or I won't really address the fire department because they're not part of the water department, that separately, but I would just say that if it comes into asking questions like that, unless it's something right there, that information that needs to be disclosed right there at the moment to save lives or property, those could be directed to the general manager after the situation is done. But at the moment, whatever the situation is, if it's the water department assisting the fire department, I would say at that time, all candor needs to be done to get the situation taken care of. So I know that's not a very clear answer, because you can never tell if you're not there at the scene and dealing with it.
We just tell our employees, don't say anything.
Yeah, private industry, it's common to have that in the employee handbook. I don't know how that
We're
would work
instructed
with
to do that
employees.
by our insurance company.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
public.
public.
Well, my first thought would be any water department personnel should communicate with the fire department, law enforcement, anything like that. However, beyond those bounds, that communication should be done either through the water department general manager or the mayor's office.
But again, in the heat of the moment, people are gonna,
Yeah, it's not.
I understand that, and that's why I said you're walking a fine line.
and it is hard, so.
It would be a matter of incorporating that into annual training or something of the employees, that here's what we like, whatever we're legally allowed to do with this entity. Ask our employees, if there's anything comes up, your answer to the media is talk to the general manager. If we're allowed to even do that, I don't know.
And I would just point out, if you're in a situation like you're responding to a fire or something like that, and you're on this one little corner,
Yeah.
you only see what you see. You don't see the totality of everything going on. And that's why it'd be better to wait if it's gonna be answering any questions. Could be done later by the general manager or the mayor in that situation after the time to reflect and get the totality of what happened, and then statements can be made at that time. Because that would be prone to, even though they thought it was correct, it could actually turn out to be misinformation, because what they perceived happened was completely different than what was actually happening.
Other input, comments?
Supper time.
Have a motion to adjourn.
What's for supper?
I don't know, but it ain't here. Hey, I brought, I made fudge to bring,
Where is it?
and I ran into some kids.
Yeah.
And they look so beautiful.
Yeah.
Let the minutes reflect that he said he made fudge.
Put it on the agenda for next week. Next month. Hey, anybody shows up on time gets it.
Whoa.
You're all right.
Whoa.
You fine.
I wouldn't have to go down.
I don't
to that
take
work.
that person.
I wouldn't, I never meant